Now to finish up this design and the cleanup of this table, let me just create a few more styles and change a couple more things. So for one thing, I'm going to format each of these sections of text using a heading tag. So let's make these H2s. Notice if I use the roller ball there, it expands and contracts. That's a nice little shortcut. If you've got a trackball on your mouse, once you've selected a heading tag, if you roll it up and down, it will change the size of the text. I really meant to roll down the page, but always nice to show you a tip as I go along. Here I'll make this an H2. Here I'll make this an H2. And then let's make these H1s, because we're actually going to make these bigger than the others. Again, using that roller ball instead of scrolling down the page. Select H1, and finally, let's make this one H1. Now, you should be a pro at creating styles for tags by now. So if we want to create a tag style for the H1 tag, remember we can just type it in if we know what the tag is, but you can always select it from the drop-down menu. I'm going to keep this all specific to this document at this point. And let's just create a simple style. We'll change the font. Let's use Arial instead. We'll change the size. So for the H1, I'm going to use extra large. And I'm going to use a nice bright red color. Click Apply, and you see instantly this is applied to the text. Now let's create a style for the H2 tag. Again, new style, tag style, H2. And this one, I'm going to also make Arial. I'm going to make it large instead of extra large, and I'm going to make it a yellow color. Click OK, and you see I've reformatted that text so it looks very similar. And in fact, you could make it look exactly like it did before. But the advantage I have now is that if I decide later I really want a brighter shade of yellow, all I have to do is change it once, and it will apply to all of that. And if you look at the code behind this page, you'll see that it's much cleaner to have a simple H2 tag here and none of the formatting information. All of that is contained in the style separate from the code. You can also create styles for the table itself. So if you notice here when I select from the corner, I select the entire table. And you come down here and you can see I've got cell padding, cell spacing, and I've also got the table aligned using the center tag. All of these are really less than ideal ways to add spacing or to center a table. So let's just create a couple more styles. Again, using tag styles to simply redefine things like the table tag itself. And now if you want to center a table, you can do it just like you can center a div tag. Just add a little margin automatically to both sides. When I click OK, you see now that table is centered using margins instead of the center tag. We could also create a style for the TD tag. That's the table data tag, as we've seen. And we could add some padding to the table data tag if we wanted to just create a little padding around the edge of each of these cells. So let's just try 10 pixels so you can see what it would look like. Again, we're just adding padding inside the table, much like the cell padding option in the table itself. You can even do things like position these images better by putting just a little more on the left than you would on the right, so that you can center some things without centering everything. So for example, you might not want to center this text, but you might want to keep it aligned with the edge of that photo. And that's just a few tips about how to clean up an old school design if you inherit a layout created with tables and it has all those old font tags and everything else. Here's just a few ways you might at least clean it up, even if you don't have time to completely redesign it. But I do strongly recommend that you move your sites more and more towards CSS, using divs instead of tables for layout, and restricting your use of tables just to using them when you have tabular data that you want to display on a page. But above all else, let me just remind you, never let the chocolate hit the floor. And if you do go on to play the chocolate game, please take pictures of yourself playing and send them to me. You'll find more on this game at chocolategamerules.com.